This is my review of the Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail, the third season episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. When the Farragut is damaged and her captain injured, James Kirk steps up as acting captain. But when the Enterprise is seized by a mysterious scavenger ship, Kirk finds himself suffering a crisis of confidence. Meanwhile, on the Enterprise, Pike and crew attempt to free their ship, but an encounter with a group of hostile intruders leads to a shocking discovery. The usual heads up that this review contains a load of spoilers, so if you've not yet seen this episode, maybe go check it out first before watching any further. Well, this is certainly an episode. In a few ways, the Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail feels very much like classic Trek. There are comparisons both in concept and in tone, and perhaps more than any episode of the show's run so far, this feels the closest in spirit to the original series. And from what I've seen, it seems like a lot of fans are in agreement. The general discourse around the episode has been overwhelmingly positive. I've seen a lot of people call this the best episode of the season. I've seen some even call it the best episode of the entire series so far. And it's not just praise from the usual rabble of happy clappers either. No, even the people who hate everything seem to be giving this one a big old thumbs up. The love, it seems, is nearly universal. Well, I hate to be that guy, but I'm gonna. I'm struggling with this one. There is a lot the episode gets right, and I will absolutely talk about those, and I can't fault the ambition and the attempt to give us something thought-provoking and something of substance. But for me, this is a mostly uneven episode, and while things improve significantly in the final acts, the many contrivances are impossible to ignore. The episode gets off to a great start with James Kirk and the Farragut encountering a mysterious planet-killing entity. A visually striking cold open that works well in grabbing our attention. I particularly like the shot of the growing shadow creeping subtly over Kirk's face. Ominous stuff. All this comes with a distinctive whiff of the Doomsday Machine, one of my all-time favourite episodes, and the episode's title referencing the Vulcan beast. I was intrigued to see where this was headed. Was this the episode where Strange New Worlds paid homage to Trek's long history of gargantuan space organisms? Could this be a modern take of the giant cloud from the animated series episode One of Our Planets is Missing? Could this just be an innocent space creature like the one we saw on TNG's Galaxy's Child? Could this even be a canon-breaking prequel appearance of V'Ger? As the story unfolds, we find out this isn't a doomsday machine, V'Ger, or some sort of space organism. No, instead it's a scavenger ship, a massive cobbled-together monstrosity stitched from the remnants of countless captured vessels. I do like the idea, even if it is a little too close to the concept that we saw on Lower Decks with the Pakleds. But I don't like the execution, which largely fails to deliver on the promise of that ominous shadow in the cold open. Where the Doomsday Machine and V'Ger felt genuinely massive and terrifying, this scavenger ship, despite all the talk of it being vastly larger than both the Farragut and the Enterprise, never really feels that big. Compare this to something like the V'Ger flyover sequence from the motion picture. The scene that goes on forever. The difference in how size is conveyed between that and this is striking. What we get here feels too light with that CGI weightlessness, not helped either by a ship design that comes across as muddy and a little too hard to define. It lacks scale, it lacks meaningful presence, and for the most part, I just didn't buy it as a threat the episode clearly intended. Where the episode does deliver is in its character stuff, particularly Kirk, who gets thrust into the captain's chair in a way that does well to separate this iteration from Chris Pine's Kelvin timeline version. I'm still not convinced Paul Wesley is the best casting for one of Trek's most iconic characters, but honestly, he is growing on me every time I see him, and this is easily his best appearance on the show to date. I like his interactions with members of the Enterprise crew, particularly Scotty, which feels bang on the money. Big props as well to Martin Quinn, who's done fantastically well to make the character his own, and is easily my favourite thing about this show at the moment. Another high point is Kirk's first proper interaction, at least in a professional capacity, with Spock, which, much like the scene with Scotty, feels very true to what we'd eventually see in TOS, right down to those nice little teasing exchanges. But as good as these moments are, this isn't what I want from this show. This is Strange New Worlds, not slightly before the original series. This is another episode that largely sidelines Captain Pike. You know, the main reason we all wanted this show in the first place. Sure, he does get stuff to do here, battling scavenger invaders in a crucial B plot that eventually switches to the A, but come on. This is a Kirk episode. I don't want to watch Strange New Worlds to see more Kirk. I've got TOS and a bunch of movies for that. Give me Pike and the adventures of his crew, not the prototypical greatest hits rehash of characters we already know. I don't care how Kirk gets over himself. I don't need to see how the TOS crew come together. Not every single gap in the canon needs to be plugged. Going off script while I'm in this kind of ranty mode, what is it with the Enterprise being so empty all the time? This is the latest episode where the ship is threatened, the entire crew are fighting for their lives, but where the fuck is the crew? The bridge is mostly empty once again, and aside from a short scene with Pelia running around with 2 or 3 engineers, there's no one running around the ship, no one working in tandem with the senior crew to get them out of the pickle they're in. It's not like the show's being filmed in the pandemic, so what gives? Look at the scenes on the bridge in the original series. It was a bustling hub of activity. I mean, they were practically tripping over each other on that set. But look at the bridge on this show. It looks nice and sparkly and high-tech, sure, but it's barren, cold, devoid of activity. It looks more like an exclusive VIP members area rather than the control center of a starship. Getting slightly back on track and sticking with the Enterprise, a lot of the plot involves the ship and her crew fighting to escape this giant scavenger ship. We get a very strange kind of C plot involving Pelia rewiring the ship with old phones and retro game controllers to re-establish comms and flight capabilities. It's fine, it's another attempt to inject some fun into another mostly downer episode, although I don't really remember laughing at a lot of it, and the Grateful Dead joke was just kind of cringe. The main drama comes with Pike and La'an encountering a couple of dangerous intruders, supposed aliens who we learn are the inhabitants of the scavenger ship. This brings us to the big twist of the episode. During the climactic firefight, one of the scavengers hesitates to kill Pike, even though he has a clear shot, before he's shot and eventually killed by La'an. Turns out the scavengers are actually humans, descendants of a lost pre-First Contact Earth ship. Its crew, the best of humanity, lost in space, corrupted over generations, shedding morality to survive, leading to them now destroying planets and plundering ships for resources. We are the villains. But the reveal comes too late, with Kirk and the Farragut disabling and then destroying the scavenger ship, not realizing they've just destroyed a part of their own past, with 7,000 lives lost. As twists go, this is pretty strong stuff and is absolutely the best thing about the episode. It's an admirable attempt to give us something challenging, something that reminds me a lot of Deep Space Nine's darkest episodes, with lots of hard questions about survival and twisted morality. On a wider level, all this opens up all sorts of introspective speculation. What is this saying about us right now? All this is reflected on in the episode's final scene, with Pike and Kirk discussing the burden of command, the life or death decisions that fall on the men and women in the big chair. I might not be a fan of how Kirk's presence on the show overshadows everything else, but it's a good scene that comes with an important lesson for the character. But, again, with the but, I've got issues with quite a lot of this. The reveal that the scavengers are actually us raises all sorts of questions, and really a lot of this episode falls apart the second you start asking some pretty basic questions. For example, why didn't the Enterprise or the Farragut try hailing the scavenger ship? Why didn't the scavengers recognise the very distinct markings on both ships, markings that, as the visual at the end reveals, hasn't really changed since the launch of their original ship. Despite the toxic fog in the lower decks, surely the scavengers must have noticed the crew had a humanoid appearance. The scavengers had no problems firing and killing members of the crew, but then one stops despite having Pike dead to rights, just because he can see his eyes. The scavenger ship is also shown to have warp capabilities, so why not just warp back to Earth? The scavengers have encountered the Klingons, but they've never come across a human ship before? Really? Never? In like over 100 years? The episode is simultaneously asking us to engage our brains to participate in the big moral questions the ending throws up, but at the same time, it clearly doesn't want us thinking too hard about a lot of the things that actually lead to the ending. You can't have it both ways. We've also seen this done already. Discovery's third season episode, People of Earth, decent episode by the way, has a very similar plot where the masked villains turn out to be us, another group of humans who, through generational isolation, have lost their way. Are we really cribbing from Discovery now? Honestly, I'm struggling to see why this episode is being so lavished with praise. It kind of makes me feel like I've gone mad again, very similar to how I felt with Picard's insanely overloved Season 3. Yes, it's another ambitious episode that tackles Trek's enduring themes of exploration of out there and in here, and combines it with darker ideas that we'd see in later shows. Once again, I like a lot of the character work, and the performances across the board are all pretty great, as they usually are. And the twist, despite the issues it throws up, is a genuinely shocking gut punch that absolutely elevates the hour. But yeah, those issues are major ones that I just can't overlook. And I'm getting tired of the show's constant attempts to set up TOS, sidelining this series' characters in favour of legacy ones that we already know all too well. This isn't a bad episode by any stretch. It's decent, perfectly watchable, fun at times, and very effective in parts. But it's not the best episode of the season, definitely not the best of the series, at least not for me, and for that reason, I'm giving the Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail a 6 out of 10. But what did you think of this episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? How would you rate it? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more Star Trek reviews, and until next time, live long and prosper.